This is Magical Moments, hosted by your favorite holistic wellness practitioner, Carla Reeves. Started with gratitude, ended with love. Magical moments are waiting for us. You can be next if you heal up your trauma. Carla gonna tell you what you need to follow. Locking, we getting you ready. Setting intentions and taking the heavy thoughts that been holding you down. This is the show that you'll be glad you found. Come get your magical moment.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Magical Moments. I am here with traveling psychic medium Tenesha. She has joined us today to talk about her journey. I actually follow her on TikTok, and I saw one of her TikToks, and she was, asking to be a guest on a podcast. And I was like, "Ooh, please, me, my little flesh podcast, please." If you notice that my shirt is the exact same as the last episode, mind your business. I'm recording multiple episodes in one night, so it's all right. It's fine. But go ahead, Tanisha, please introduce yourself and all the things that you do and your passions, and we'll go from there.
Okay, wow. Let's see, where do I start? Well, I live in my van full time. That's usually what I start talking about, at least. And I think that here, I'm actually going to turn my screen so you could take a look. And my journey started about 5 months ago with my cat and I got a divorce roughly probably a couple months before that. I decided to go ahead and just start traveling. But the most important thing is I feel like I'm on a mission. And that mission is to solely teach people how they can connect with their source energy. Now, I want to add that I've had so many different titles for it, by the way. I used to say soul family, spirit family, ancestors, spirit guides. But the most important thing is that um, I say I say a title that is conducive of what the core value is, like what the core definition is, and that is energy, right? So all the
Yep.
other titles don't really matter. Anyways, so I teach people how to connect with that because we are meant to receive messages from the other side to help us on our journey. And we can go a little bit more into detail in a little bit here, but that's primarily what I do. And on top of that, I do readings. That's actually how I pay for my gas, my food. I pay for my car insurance. That's basically it. Now, mind you, I would say roughly 3 years ago, I had a psychic medium tell me that I was going to be doing this. And I looked at her like she was crazy because at the time I was in the tech industry. I was working my way up in a company, a software company, and I was doing all the things, right? So I looked at her like she was crazy. Like, there's no way I'm going to do that. I'm just focused on making money and feeling successful, right?
Right.
My definition of success has changed drastically over the last couple of years. But yeah, that's primarily what I'm doing. My mission is to teach, also explore my own spirituality, and share what I learned about it.
Wow, that is such an amazing journey. I want you to talk a little bit more about what it was like to kind of mentally, because, okay, my business is holistic wellness. So, yes, I delve deep in spirituality. I'm also a psychic medium. And
Ah,
I delve deep into spirituality and all that good stuff. And I teach people, how to tap into their intuition and all about meditation and breath work and all that good stuff. But
mhm.
I approach it from a more holistic sense, in terms of like, how's your mental health, how is your your finances, because all of this encompasses the person, right? We're
Mhm.
beings, we're energy. And if something is off, if your finances are off, then your mental is off and your spiritual is off. So I want to be able to create a space. No, I am creating a space where I'm treating the person as a whole, right? So I
Yes.
want you to talk more about what it was like for you to go from that space of going from wanting to make money and move up in the tech industry to now living in your van. How did that affect you emotionally, mentally, all that good stuff?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. So, much like most people, I had an upbringing where I felt lack in some point in my life, and that snowballed into me being this hyper independent, ambitious person. That if I felt like if I wasn't a CEO of a company, then I wasn't doing anything with my life. That
Appreciate.
was my goal, right?
Reach.
So my ego being this sort of like how would I say, the conductor of every choice that I made, right? I got to the point where I worked my way up within this company. It took me about 3 years. I got the job that I wanted. I was making a decent income every single year, the most money I've ever made. And I remember the moment once I got the job, I cried. That's how happy I was. And it was a month later, it didn't even take that much time. A month later, that I look at myself and I was just like, you know what? This doesn't feel right. And this was one of the first moments in my life where some people might call it a spiritual awakening, or at least the momentum of a spiritual awakening happening. But I started paying attention to how I felt whenever I went to work. I was just like, you know what? I feel just like I felt when I was working at the bottom of the company from my very first position. And now I'm over here 3 positions later. I still feel the same way. What am I missing? Why am I not happy? Because we say that if we're making a lot of money and we're doing the job that we've wanted to do, then we should be happy, right?
Right.
So, anyways, I started asking all the right questions. And at the time, my support system was my mother, not financial support system, but she was my emotional support person. She was the person I went to whenever I struggled with anything in my life. And she always supported me in any decision I wanted to make. And I could see how frustrated she was with me because she's like, why aren't you happy? And I'm like, I don't know. So a couple months go by, and unfortunately, this is during the C pandemic.
Hmm.
And when this is happening, my mom ended up getting sick and she ended up passing away from it.
Oh.
Now, when that happened, that's when everything completely shifted for me. I knew in that moment that this job wasn't for me. My relationship wasn't for me, but I still hadn't gotten the courage to leave it yet. But everything had to change. So I started doing that. I started learning about meditation. This is roughly 3 years ago, by the way. Started learning about meditation, started getting used to using terms that are basic terms in the spiritual community.
Mhm.
Let's see. Another thing that happened was I started making small changes in my appearance in my house. I started painting the walls. I started changing the floors, ripping up this, destroying this, renovating this, and nothing made me feel good. So I was like, all right, let me go ahead and do some inventory here because something's not right. I'm learning more about spirituality. I'm feeling more confident in my connection with my source energy, with my ancestors, my grandmother, my mother's coming through now. And I'm speaking to them. And then I realized that it wasn't the walls, the paint on the walls that needed to change. It wasn't the furniture that needed to change. It had to be me. I was missing the main thing in my life, that one thing that I had left that I needed to let go of. And that was my relationship. And once I did that, everything, I'm talking about complete turnaround. I would say another spiritual awakening. And when that happened, I sat with myself. I was like, okay, what do I do now? Because I own this house with this person. We share space together. It's getting awkward, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's getting awkward. So I was like, where can I go? What can I do? And then I remember hearing this voice, and the voice said, what have you always wanted to do? And I was just like, man, I want to travel. That's what I've been doing, but I've been doing it from a place of guilt because I had to go back to where I was from to, spend time with the person that I was with at the time. But
Mhm.
now I don't have to go back anywhere. So they said, this is the best part. I started scrolling through TikTok because once I asked the question, they said travel and I let it go. This is really important. I let it go. I didn't need to have all the pieces. I didn't need to know everything in that moment. All I knew is that I would be traveling. So I got on TikTok and I started scrolling. And then I ran into van life videos. And I was just like, that's it. That's it. I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Mind you, I have zero in my savings account, barely have any money. This is December of last year. And once I decided, not just mentally, but also physically, emotionally, and, just giving the universe permission to give me the next step, January, I believe it was January 12th, right before my birthday. I said that I asked my spirits, or my spirit guide, I was like, I want a truck or a van, and I want to be able to convert it, and I want to travel in it, just like people in van life. And lo and behold, right after my birthday, January 22nd, I bought the truck. And then 7 days later, I converted it. And I grabbed my cat and I left Florida. So,
Wow.
yeah. And I'm telling you, it doesn't even matter how it happened. The how never matters. It's not important. The when is not important. It's just the fact that I believed that I could do it. And then
Absolutely.
I surrendered. I let go of control. I let go of the need to have all the information in that moment. And that's something that's a momentum that I continue to this day. Everything that I need, whether it be gas, food, something new tires for my van, food for my cat, anything like that, I always receive it. So that's a little snippet of my story. And then a little bit more, I'll just go ahead and add this last piece here is, again, I pay my bills with the psychic mediumship.
Mhm.
But my guides made it very clear that that would not be the end all be all. They said that's just one step. The next step was for me to teach because it's important for people to know how to connect, why it's important to connect, how they're gonna benefit from doing so
Mhm.
because of the coming times or what's happening right now. I can even say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, that is just, I don't even know how to process that in this moment.
It's a
Because
lot, right?
not only is it a lot, but it resonates so much with my own story. I also went through a breakup. I was with my son's father for 15 years, left, like, had the spiritual awakening. And I believe we have multiple spiritual awakenings throughout our life. So I had one spiritual awakening, left him, ended up moving to South Carolina, kind of doing it on my own and just really moving without knowing, how everything is going to unfold, which is very
Mhm.
hard for me because, my little Virgo heart wants to have every piece of the puzzle before I make even one small step. So learning to just let go and let spirit take the wheel and just move, that was difficult. So, having you, and I'm a creature of comfort, but I know that probably stems from other stuff, working on that. So having you go from like being in the house, and I did have to be in the house with my ex for quite a while, but it my choice because I also did not, because I left because I wanted to, end the relationship.
Mhm.
I did tell him, you can stay for a little bit, get your bearings. Like I didn't want to just kick him out in the street. Like we were together for 15 years. I'm not just gonna kick
Mhm.
you out in the street. So we did, it was uncomfortable. We did share a house and it was uncomfortable, an apartment actually, and it was uncomfortable. So I get it. But having to go from that to then living in a van, my brain is just like, how do you process this? Because I think I would just be, I don't know if I could do it. My one of my very good friends, she's almost like a sister to me. She actually wants to buy an RV and just live out of her RV. And
Mhm.
I'm like, girl, that is good for you, but I need a bed and, I'm a creature of comfort. However, I do see kind of the benefit of not having so much stuff because once you're contained and you have the minimum, you have no choice but to connect to your God
Yes.
and all of that. So I, like, while I get it and I see it, processing it is just so hard for me in this moment.
In a way, but I want to remind you, like letting go in general is a constant. I don't want to say struggle, but a constant opportunity for growth for us. You say you don't think you might be able to let it go, but I believe you would because in so many times in your life you've had to do that,
Yeah, that's true.
include in the marriage. I mean, for that's a lot. It's a big deal. If you can do that, then you can say, you know what, these things have served me. I love them, but I'm going to let them go to someone else so they can do the same with someone else. That's how I look at my belongings, And I do want to add too, I still have things at the house, like my mom's ashes are there, some doohickeys and, whatever that are still there. But at some point, I'm going to have to go back and, you know,
Yeah.
sift through some things and start letting some things go. So,
Yeah. And also too, the fact that you want to travel, that's also a dream of mine. But
mhm,
the way I envision my travel, again, because I am a creature of comfort, it's like
mhm,
I want to travel the world. I don't want to just travel, locally in the US. And I want to visit different like spiritual sites. I
mhm.
want to go to the pyramids and I want to go to Christ the Redeemer and just different places
Mm,
and just feel the spiritual energy throughout these different places
yes.
and just
Yes.
just live for maybe, I don't know, a month or two in that space and soak it all in and listen to spirit and connect. And that's kind of my dream.
One of the things that I did that allowed me to be where I am now is before I had the funds, before I had the resources, I pretended like I did. So before I had the money to buy the van, I went out and started looking at vans, and I wasted a lot of people's time, but they didn't know that, you know,
Yeah.
you know. So I'm really really big on, if you want it, then pretend like you already have it. That's a big one, and it's not even just acting, and it's not just the emotion. It's saying that, hey, I can have this now without there being a prerequisite, without there being something that I need to do or say or feel or have, whatever, before I actually receive this thing. Or mindset, because that's another thing I asked for. It wasn't just a tangible van, it was also the mindset to believe that I could have it and anything else in the future. So, but yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that. I want to go back to your teaching. And do you have a platform where you're currently teaching? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, yes. So the reason why this is really important to me is because of what's happening in the world. A lot of us are still looking at our decision makers in our communities to answer questions for us, questions that they can only answer based on their current level of awareness at this point, because it's far past what we're seeing. The things that are happening in the background are so deep in the ether. They're so deep in, I want to say, the astral realm, that you can't ask someone who can only see with their eyes. So you have to be able to say, I don't need their answers and their, their clarity or their confirmation or anything. I can go within myself and I can ask my guides. I can ask my inner guidance system if these ETs that are hovering around my city are real or not. Should I be afraid? Should I be preparing for something? So, anyways, my goal, I'm going to answer your question now. My mission, my goal, my purpose is to hold space for people that are not sure that the things that they're experiencing are, I would say the things that they're experiencing, they're not sure of, I guess I would say.
Mhm.
So they're not sure if it's something that they should be using. They're not sure if it's a hobby. They're not sure if it's something evil. For those people who have a foundation of Christianity or some sort of other religion, and they
Yeah.
have a very black and white point of view still. There's no middle ground. So anyways, the short version is, my purpose is to hold the space and ask the right questions, to use my guides as a form of information for them, but also teach them how to use the senses that they have. And when I say senses, I'm really not a big fan of psychic abilities or psychic gifts. I don't like saying those words. It's all about our divine senses, because divine meaning divinity, right? The what we're getting this information from, what we're getting this energy from, is the divine source, the power, the source energy. These are senses that we were all born with, that we've been conditioned out of using.
Yeah.
Because if and I say they, meaning the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, right?
Mhm.
You can call them, I'm not going to go there. Okay, I'm not going to go there. But they purposely conditioned us not to use them, because if they allowed us to do it, then we would be much more powerful than they are.
Yeah.
So the gifts that I have, the divine senses that I have, are the same ones that you have, but at a different capacity. The same ones that everyone has at a different capacity. I call them dominant senses. So these are the ones that we use the most, the ones that we were able to receive and connect with based on our experiences. Much easier. So maybe for you, it's clairvoyance. Maybe for me, it's clairaudience or what have you. But in short, that's my goal. My goal is to help you gain confidence in your abilities, to help you get clear on what your abilities are, to help you understand why it's important to use these abilities, because we are our own superhumans. We don't need a conductor. We don't need anything else from the outside. We don't need outside validation for anything. We have the answers within.
Absolutely. We do. So do you work mostly one-on-one or do you do like group courses? What's kind of your platform at the moment?
Yeah, so I used to do group courses, but I was told recently to focus on one-on-one, and I'm pretty sure that's just simply because everyone's situation is so different, and I can put more energy into one person and get more information for them if I'm focused on just them. So I go back and forth. It again, it started off with one-on-one, then it went to group classes, then it went to free classes, and now it's one-on-one and strictly, with one person.
Yeah.
And let's see, what else can I say about that? It's roughly an hour and a half long. And sometimes I go a little bit further than that, depending on how much time the person that I'm working with has, or if there's like some sort of specific message that's coming through. Sometimes ancestors come through, and I will always let my person know.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think working one on one kind of gives you that, just makes the person feel a little bit more special, more seen. And it
Yes.
really does, you can dive deep into their specific situation because, like you said, not everyone has the same thing. Not everyone has the same dominant gift or dominant ability.
Yes.
So it's like, how do I help you? And doing that in a group setting is a little bit more challenging. I mean, it's not hard. I'm sure you can do it. It's just more challenging.
It
Um,
is. And it also puts me in this box as well as the teacher. It's saying that I have to have some sort of flow that's happening in this meeting. And I always leave room for downloads that I want to share with a group of people. But it's different because everyone has a certain amount of time that they're putting aside for the class. Um, yeah, just different capacities of learning and information in general. But yeah.
Awesome. How do you have like a specific, or not even a specific, do you have like a general kind of format that you use and then you branch off from there? Or is it like completely spirit led? Like, I'm going to go into this session and whatever comes up, comes up.
It's so funny when I first started being, this, maybe it's my astrology, maybe it's my birth chart, I don't know. But when I first started, I had to have this very specific framework. And I remember being so frustrated about whether that framework was going to work. And I was like, this is great. And then, of course, the next day, there was just like instant fear. I was like, what if this doesn't work for everyone? Blah, blah, blah. So then I realized in that moment, much like with everything in our life, right? We all go through this. If I'm feeling fear, if I'm rushing, if I'm making a decision out of ego, then I need to take a step back. So I did that, took a step back, and I allowed the information to come through. And my guides reminded me, why would I create a framework that doesn't reflect how I learned how to connect with source? So I was like, all right, let me go back to the drawing board. So to answer your question, I do have a general framework, but it's mainly spirit led, which is one of the other reasons why I do one-on-ones instead of group now. Because being spirit led, meaning that I can get information for the particular person that I'm holding that space for in that moment, and then provide them what they need in that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Is there any kind of nugget you can share? Of course, don't give too much away because we want people to come to you. We want people to come to you. But is there a little nugget that you can share on how to connect? Like, what's
absolutely. Yes. So this is something I do in my TikTok live as well, by the way. And it's so simple. It throws people off because of how simple it is. So what I like to do is I like to share the importance of when you're asking a question to your soul family, your soul team, source energy, that you're respectful in the sense that it's not when you're driving, it's not when you are dysregulated, it's not when you are distracted. You focus on the connection first. You do a quick breathing exercise. You believe that you can connect, have that emotion, actually have the confidence to do so. And sometimes I like to add in like an affirmation or something, depending on who I'm working with, because some people do like to have something really specific. Some people don't. They're a little bit more confident in their abilities. Anyways, I simply walk them through asking out loud, speaking the question that they have a question about, or if they just have a general, they want general information, speak out loud, and then pay attention to the first thing you hear, see, and feel. So technically, it's about roughly 3 steps. It's just holding the space for your soul family,
Mhm.
breathing exercise, speaking out loud, and then receiving the information. And it's super simple. But when people like, it's so funny because I think one person, this is a perfect example, during TikTok live when I did that, one person said she didn't hear, see, or feel anything. I'm sorry, she did hear, she felt, hold on, she felt a tingle in her right leg. That's what it was. She felt a tingle in her right leg, but nothing else. And I was like, that's so interesting because right usually means yes, no means, or left means no. And she goes, I feel that. I feel like it's a yes to my question. And I was like, that's a perfect example of feeling an
Mhm.
answer. So let's go further than that. Keep practicing, keep writing down the responses, things like that. But anyways, and then sometimes I get people that hear a whole sentence and they're like, I can't believe it's that easy. And I was like, that's because we expect it to be like what we see in the entertainment industry,
Mhm.
where God opens up the clouds and then puts his hand down and then, picks up the thing that we've been wanting and puts it into our reality. I was like, it's not like that. Well, at least not visually like that. So so that's my like really simple exercise. I also do that in my one-on-one, but in a maybe a more how would I say this? Larger capacity, I guess I would say. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great exercise I think people can continue to do and then build on.
yes.
You actually said something interesting about, what people think because of what they see in the entertainment industry. What have you found is like your biggest misconception from people that you work with?
Ooh, biggest misconception. That's a good question. Let me think really quick. Wow. I mean, what I'm getting right now is to talk about my definition of ghosts and spirits versus spirits, things like that. In entertainment industry, specifically horror movies, they like to portray something that you don't understand as something evil, that
Mhm.
it's going to get you and things like that. So, oh, this is a perfect story. So I met someone, one of my clients, it was I think an hour reading at the time, and she really needed help. I can just feel the desperate, like I could feel the anxiety coming through my phone. So she had just purchased a home on this land, right? She believed that the reason why she's feeling tension, she's seeing things, her people's emotions are being, how would I say this? When people entered her home, they would immediately get angry. So the emotions are being affected. So she's feeling all these things, and she specifically asked me, "Can you get this thing out of my house?" Now, as she's speaking, I'm seeing like this big conflict that's happened on the land of where she lived, and it leaving an energetic imprint on that land, which is what ghosts do, right? Whenever a traumatic things happens, there's an energy imprint that's left on the land, and we just see remnants of that, so to speak, right? So anyways, I tell her what I see, and she's like, no, 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 I'm pretty sure that there's a ghost in my house, there's an evil entity in my home. And I said, let me ask you a couple questions. I said, is this your first time feeling this way? And she said, no, I used to feel it in all these different places, right? And I was like, okay, interesting. I was like, and then the second thing I asked her, I was like, do you actually feel like there's something specific walking around your house? She goes like, no, it's the whole house. It's the house. And I'm like, okay, let me ask you a couple other questions. So long story short, we got to conclusion, or came to the conclusion, that it's not the specific entity in her home, it's her. She was tapping into a part of herself that was expanding due to a recent death that happened in her life.
Wow.
Someone passed away, and it created this sort of spiritual awakening that was happening in her life. She felt fear because of the way that she was brought up,
Mhm.
black or white again, evil or good.
Yep.
And because of that, and I thought that was so fascinating because I'd never spoken to anyone who struggled in that way, who experienced those type of things before. And I said, what I can do instead is teach you how to control it.
Mhm.
But what's most important is not being so afraid of it, because it is you. This is something that no matter where you go, you're going to experience. So that's one of the perfect examples of, again, the entertainment industry warping our minds around these things, that are happening to us. You wouldn't feel it unless you were able to feel it.
Right.
That's the most important thing. You can't control the energy, but what instead you can control how it affects you. So yeah, that's just, hopefully that answered your question.
No, it totally did. It because one of the biggest misconceptions that I find, especially as a medium that's able to communicate with the other side, is the way people think it happens, even not even just a mediumship, but any gift in general. People just automatically assume that I just know everything. And I'm like,
Yes,
no, I get downloads. I don't know everything.
exactly.
I'm not source. I don't know everything. I
Yes,
I
but
know what I know.
exactly. And the beautiful thing is too, because one of the things I do too as well in TikTok live specifically, I'll get the most random question and I won't know. So I'm like, okay, let me remind myself to ask in this moment. Let me ask. And then I got and it's perfect to show them because it's a live, how would I say this? Example of what they would expect if they did it
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or they think like I've started saying when I speak to the other side, like it comes through in these full perfect sentences,
Yeah.
and that's not always the case.
No,
So
sometimes I get like one word, and those are the times that I get frustrated. I'm like, I need more. They expect more. I need more. Come on. You know,
yeah.
like, let me calm down, or else I'm going to be getting frustrated over here. We're not trying to do it.
And for me, I realize that it depends on who I'm speaking with because sometimes I will get words, other times it's like a game of charades and I get pictures.
Hmm.
And then I have to kind of piece together what they're saying. And they're asking me questions like, oh, what's our favorite? Because they're, trying to make sure like I'm legit. And they're asking me questions like, what's their favorite color and or the
Oh,
number that we agreed on. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. But then they
I
will
know.
show me like things about their life. And I'll say, well, I can't answer that question, but he loves motorcycles. He had this dream of doing X, Y, and Z. And then they go, oh. And I'm like, it's not like you see in the movies, people.
That's so interesting. So, luckily, I haven't gotten anyone like that yet. Not that I know. There might have been a couple of TikTok people that came in because I do private readings, but my little readings are on TikTok, and I get everyone there. But anyways, I haven't gotten that yet, but I do know exactly what you mean. Sometimes, okay, this is a perfect example for me. Sometimes I'll get people that come in that have specific questions, and if I provide them with an answer that they don't like, that's when I get a little bit of a little bit of attitude, which is fine. I get it. I just tell them what it is and then I don't let it bother me because if I do, then it's saying, hey, I want there to be a specific outcome of this meeting or else. When in reality, all my job is to hold the space and share with them what I'm seeing and that's it. Not
Yeah.
my responsibility, anything else.
Yeah. I've had that happen to me as well. People would come in because, their relationship is disintegrating and they want to know why this is happening. And the answer I give them is not the answer they wanted. So now they're upset. And I'm like, I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. Like,
Awesome.
but do you have any questions for me before we close out?
Well, it's not really a question. It's definitely a statement. I definitely want to connect with you for a reading at some point. It's been a while since I've gotten a reading from someone else. It used to be something that I did whenever I went to like farmers markets or like some sort of spiritual markets, but I'm kind of feeling it. I definitely want to connect with you. Other than that, I don't really have too many questions. I know you like to keep it short, so I'm gonna let you do
Yeah.
your thing.
Awesome. Well, you have my number. You have, how to reach me. So, yes, let's connect. Thank you so much for joining. Before we end, I always ask all my guests, what does a magical moment look like for you?
Oh, a magical moment looks like for me is when you walk into a coffee shop and instead of us speaking about the weather, to someone that you don't know, we speak about what's something that you've learned about yourself recently that's made you happy. We speak about the spiritual connections between people. We speak about what psychic gift has come up for us recently. I want to normalize spiritual gifts. I want to normalize divine senses. I want to help to normalize because I mean, I'm just like a very small person in a large world here, but I want to be part of it. And I do want to say something I'm really happy about, by the way, is every
Yeah.
time I listen to a podcast now, is the guest on the podcast is talking a lot about what I'm talking about. Like it's a different version, but it's the same concept. And I'm like, oh crap, that's why this is my purpose. It's because I'm meant to be a small part of a momentum that's already happening, a chain reaction that's happening in the universe and unity consciousness. And we're all waking up because we're realizing after the C word happened, C pandemic happened, um, we're realizing that we have more control than we thought we did and that no one else can help us but ourselves.
Yep.
So I
I
love
love
that.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining. You can find Tanisha on TikTok. I will have all of her information in the description bar. So please go check her out, especially if you're struggling with connecting with your intuition and the divinity within. Um, Absolutely go check her out. Watch her TikTok videos, go to her lives, book a one-on-one session. But that is it. That is all. Thank you for joining. As always, start with gratitude, end with love, and find your magical moment. And I will see you next time.